Good evening, everyone. Tonight is Wednesday, January the 6th, 2020. This is a very significant day in our history. At the time I'm writing this, I do not know the results of the situation in Congress, nor of the demonstrations that were to be held today. But the one thing I'm sure of, God will prevail. 2020 has shown us who we are as a people and what we will do as individuals to accomplish our goals, whether they be bad or good. I woke up about 12 o'clock one night. I think it was Sunday night. It was 12 a.m. Monday. And these thoughts were on my mind, and I just got up and I started writing them. But since that time, we know what the results of today is and what has happened out in Washington. And I'm not going to elaborate on those, but I just feel good about what we are seeing and the revelations that God are giving to us. 2020 has revealed the deep in us that many of us did not know existed. 2020 has shown the world the greed and ruthlessness that lies within each of us and the extent that we will go to express that degradation. We have seen the height of lawlessness, the depth of sinfulness, and the width of limitless. There have been no boundaries for some of us, no morals to live by, and no plans or intentions to correct or make any attempts to help those in need. And the worst of it all is this. This revelation of corruption and those who participated in it have no qualms about bragging and showing off to the public just who they are, what they did and what they stood for. They told us just live with it. We are not you and we don't care. Yes, 2020 has given us a clear vision of what this world is capable of and what this world has been doing undercover for all these years. The secrets are coming out and the hidden sins are in the light. No one is trying to hide their selfishness anymore. And it is okay to watch their wealth in the face of those who will never experience the pleasures of a worry-free or debt-free society where all are treated with respect and honor for the privilege of being human. God is watching you. 2020 vision is what we all have seen. Some embraced it, some condemned it, and some rejected it. Regardless of our feelings for it, I hope we all made the right decisions. I woke up the other night with one word on my mind. That word was allegiance. I thought it seemed strange, but as I lay in bed, the thought came to me, Carol, what is your allegiance to? As I pondered about that, many things came to my mind. First, I thought I would need to get a clear understanding of just what the word allegiance meant. So at midnight, I decided to get up and put this down before I forgot what my thoughts were. We as human beings have scurried around life in many ways without a sense of direction in our lives. I'm certainly one who can say amen to that. At 73 years old, I'm asking myself, what have I demonstrated allegiance to during my lifetime? First of all, I want to believe that for the past 52 years, I have shown and demonstrated allegiance to God. I hope He knows that I love Him. For the past 56 and a half years, I have shown allegiance to my immediate family, I hope they know that I love them. And finally, for the past 42 years, I hope that my church family in the city of Philadelphia has felt and observed our love, dedication, devotion, and genuineness to them as we have attempted to minister and fellowship with them throughout these years. I hope we have been a blessing to you as you have certainly been a blessing to us. As an individual, I seemingly missed out on the greatest gift that God had given me by perhaps not focusing on developing that which I was most gifted with. There has not been a challenge that I have been presented with that I did not put my heart, soul, and mind into it. I have always committed 100% of my time, talent, and ability to the tasks that have been presented to me. The problem is that most of my time was spent on trying to make things right and pleasant for others. I hope you're able to hear what I'm saying tonight. I'm not sure if this is being broadcast the way it is supposed to be. If not, call Pastor Crawford and we'll see what we can do, okay? Even when it was not requested or needed, this has presented less time for self-evaluation and self-improvement. Do you know to what you have given your allegiances? God, man, money, self? It's time to figure it out. This is one decision you need to make as early in life as possible. Don't wait until you're too old to make your decision. Young people, keep track of yourself. Seek out your gifts and allegiances that are best suited for your growth and development. Pay allegiance to those things that will help make you a better person. And then give back to the God and to the people who made it possible for you to succeed. I believe my greatest gift has been the ability to research and figure things out and then turn around and write about those discoveries in a clear and practical way. Over the years, I have made notes, but I have not had the discipline to sit down and transfer those notes in a way that is convenient for sharing. Please pray for me to make space for this in my life, as I pray for you to make space in your life for those things that you have given allegiance to. Before I leave this world, pardon me for veering off the subject, but make sure you know what your allegiances are. Psalm 7 and 9 says, "Some trust in chariots and some in horses, but we will remember the name of the Lord our God. They are brought down and fallen, but we are risen and stand upright. Save, Lord, let the King hear us when we call." The word of the day, allegiance. You can pledge your allegiance to the flag or swear your allegiance to a government or cause. Either way, you're expressing your commitment and devotion in the firmest sense of the word. The league and allegiance comes from the old French word meaning Lord and Master, which is who you would have been swearing your allegiance to if you had been a servant in France centuries ago. As a noun, it is the act of binding yourself intellectually or emotionally to a course of action, like a commitment or a dedication or loyalty. There are 10 types of allegiance. You can have communalism, a loyalty or a commitment to the interest of your own minority or ethnic group rather than to society as a whole. You can have a consecration commitment, which is a solemn commitment of your life and your time to some cherished purpose, to a service or a goal. You can have commitments or allegiance to devotion, a commitment to some purpose. You can enlist in the army. That's an allegiance. You can exercise your faith, which is loyalty or allegiance to a cause or a person. Be careful with that one. Cultism, devotion to the doctrine or a cult of a practices of a cult. Hobbyism, sometimes we can get lost and pledge our allegiance to our devotion to hobbies. There's also something called fetish, which is an excessive or irrational devotion to some activity. You can have a devotion to a political party. That's an allegiance. As the second meaning, there's a loyalty that citizens owe to their country, and these are loyalties and trueness, the quality of being loyal. I think in chapter 38, some of the greatest things one of the greatest things that we are going to talk about is the fact that Zedekiah really didn't know who he was or what kind of a person he was, because I would like to categorize him as a wishy-washy king. I don't know if you know about wishy-washy people, but they're pretty much with the person that has the most dominating spirit or dominating purpose. Sometimes they'll be on your side if everything's going well, and if something goes sour, then they'll turn and go to somebody else's side. So their allegiance is not stable, and you need to worry about that sometimes. I don't see any responses or any talking back here, so I'm hoping and praying that this recording is coming through to you. There's an amateur that's been trying to work on this tonight, okay? Jeremiah 38, his prison was continued, and basically, as his imprisonment continued, he continued to have faith and loyalty to the Lord. His allegiance was to God. Regardless of the circumstances in his life, his allegiance was to God. Zedekiah, on the other hand, who was the king at that time in Jerusalem, Zedekiah's allegiance was to whoever was offering the best services to him. So we're going to read that in a few minutes. Zedekiah, in this chapter, he has been thrown into a pit. People don't like what he's saying. And sometimes when people are telling the truth, you get crucified for being truthful, and they don't like you, and then they will tell a lie on you. So you have to be careful who your friends are. Pay close attention to that. God is with you. Regardless of what the circumstances look like, don't be afraid to stick with God. Even though we have fears of men and we worry about what they think about us and what they're saying about us, it really doesn't matter. But you have to make sure you are pleasing the Lord. That's the one that matters. What he thinks about us and what he cares about us, okay? So in the 38th chapter, Jeremiah has been thrown in a pit. He's been preaching to Zedekiah, and he was rescued from the pit, and there was an agreement between Jeremiah and Zedekiah. But there's some things that you just cannot depend on with Zedekiah. In certain circumstances, Jeremiah needed to trust him. But it's hard to trust a wishy-washy person, okay? Look at your neighbor and say, are you a wishy-washy person? Jeremiah 38, verse 1. Then Shephatiah, the son of Mattan, and Gedaliah, the son of Pashur, and Jucal, the son of Shelemiah, and Pashur, the son of Malachiah, heard the words that Jeremiah had spoken unto all the people, saying. Now, these guys that we're talking about here, they are the princes or in the court of Zedekiah, okay? Thus saith the Lord. This is what Jeremiah was telling them that the Lord said. He that remaineth in the city shall die by the sword, by the famine, and by the pestilence. Listen to this statement. He that remaineth in this city shall die by the sword. You'll die either by the sword or by famine, where there be no food, or by the pestilence, where the insects will take over. But he that goeth forth to the Chaldeans shall live, for he shall have his life for a prey, and shall live. So what is the deal here? God is trying to let them know you have some choices to make. It's hard to make choices. It's hard to make allegiance to people, but here is very plain. Jeremiah said you got a decision to make. If you stay in this city, Jerusalem was destined to be destroyed. For years, Jeremiah had preached to the people. He had talked to them, and even in other scriptures, in Isaiah, and Ezekiel, and Daniel, God had already talked to the people about what I'm going to do if you don't change your behavior. You got to change your ways. And you have to be mindful of those ways. And it's hard, I know sometimes, when you're trying to recondition yourself to stop doing certain things and start doing other things. But this was simple. Who are you going to trust? Are you going to trust what Jeremiah is saying that the Lord has promised? God doesn't lie. God does not lie to people. God does not deceive us. He point blank comes out and tells us, you got a decision to make. I remember when I got saved, when he warned me through my daughter when she was a baby. He said, I can take her like this if I wanted to. I heard those words that day. He said, but you need to get yourself together. And I could hear the snap of his finger or the snap of the finger. I could take her like that if I wanted to. I said, yeah, Lord, you can do that. And the very next week, when she got the wire caught under her eyelid, he said, I could take her sight just like that if I wanted to. Well, the next Sunday, I went to church. I went to church for another reason. Lord, spare my child. I wasn't thinking about myself. But you know what? God was thinking about me. He wanted me to get my life together. And he told me what he would do if I didn't get it together. And I obeyed him. And I thank God that, like I said, 42 years ago or 52 years ago that I've been saved, I made a decision to go with the Lord. Now, Zedekiah, his princes were being told by Jeremiah, if you all decide that you want to stay in this city, in spite of the fact that God has already told you that Nebuchadnezzar is going to bring his army. The Babylonians are coming in. The Chaldeans are on the outskirts. And you've got all of these other factions out there. They're like praise trying to wait to see who can take over Jerusalem. Well, see, God hadn't told the Chaldeans or anybody else that they were going to be in charge of Jerusalem. However, God told Jeremiah the Chaldeans are going to be the ones that burn the city down. See, when God puts things in place, they're in place. There's no reneging on that. There's no backing up on that or backstepping, so we say. But when he says, if you don't do this, I'm going to do this, put your money on that. That's what, well, don't be gambling either. But make sure, bank on that. When God says, if you don't do this, I'm going to do that, then it's as well as done. But the beautiful thing about it is we have the opportunity to make a choice as to which life we want to live. Because if you choose to live under the direction of Satan and under the direction of all the influences of this world and what people can do for you and say for you, then you are putting your soul in jeopardy with God. It's better to give your soul and your heart and your mind to God, and He will bring the right people and places and things in your life that will be where you need to be going. But if you're taking over your life and doing things and catering to the appreciations and I want to say the accolades, that's the word, kind of depending on people to give you praise, then you are taking the matter into your own hands. But Jeremiah told the princes, he says, if you remain in this city, you will die by the sword, die by the famine, and by the pestilence. But if you go forth to the Chaldeans, you shall live. He that goeth forth shall live. For he shall have his life for a prey and live. God was even giving them two choices. Go with the Chaldeans, and they're going to take advantage of you, but go with them. You will live. Or you can go and submit yourselves to the king of Babylon, which is Nebuchadnezzar, and you will live also. You got two choices. Go here and live, go there and live, but if you stay here, you're going to die. You can go there or you can go there, but if you stay here, you're going to die. All right? And you're going to suffer by one of these means. Somebody's going to give you the sword, you're going to be hungry, or you're going to be plagued by the pests. So it says here in 3, thus saith the Lord, this city shall surely be given into the hand of the king of Babylon's army, which shall take it. So you just think about what he's saying here. Stay in the city, you're going to die. Go with the Chaldeans, you're going to live. And he also said, one thing for sure, Nebuchadnezzar is going to take over the city. All right? Verse 4. Therefore the princes said unto the king. Well, they didn't like what Jeremiah said. They were not that ecstatic about hearing bad news. They considered what they considered bad news, but this was a warning to them. This was an opportunity for them to find true life. Therefore the princes said unto the king, now they went to Zedekiah, we beseech thee, let this man be put to death. For thus he weakeneth the hands of the men of war that remain in this city. In other words, Zedekiah, we're fighting to keep Jerusalem. We're trying to keep the doors open here. We're trying to keep the people from coming in and conquering Jerusalem. Well, they were out of order. They were out of order. He said, because Jeremiah is talking against what we are working for. You with me? Sometimes a Christian has to walk out of step to get with God, to communicate with people who think they are in step. All right? He says, for thus he weakeneth the hands of the men of war that remain in this city, and the hands of all the people, in speaking such words unto them. For this man seeketh not the welfare of this people, but the hurt. He's been accused of hurting them. There's no one in this universe at that time more than Jeremiah who loved the people of Jerusalem. He wanted the best for them. He heard from a word from the Lord. He warned them and he told them what the Lord said. It didn't mean he didn't love them. He was just giving them the news straight off the press, and that was straight from God. Well, they accused him of not caring about him. We're trying to fight and win, and everything he says, he's tearing us down, and we can't do it. Well, we know about that because that's been happening for a good while now. Therefore, he said, we want to put him to death, Zedekiah. Now, here's Zedekiah. All this time, Jeremiah's been coming to Zedekiah, telling him, thus saith the Lord, thus saith the Lord. Zedekiah's had him in jail one time before, brought him back and said, what did the Lord tell me? And now he's fixing to do the same thing again. But Zedekiah was not a king that you could trust. He was a weak person. He was a coward. He would cater to those people who had the greatest influence on him. In other words, his allegiance was not to God, but his allegiance was to whoever said nice things to him to make him feel better. That's who Zedekiah was. And Zedekiah, in verse 5, he said, behold, he is in your hand. Well, now here's a turncoat. Jeremiah had been friends with Zedekiah. But here all of a sudden, Zedekiah said, behold, he's in your hands. Is that not what Pilate did for Jesus when he told them, do unto him as you will? But I find no fault in him. Zedekiah wasn't angry with Jeremiah. Zedekiah didn't have anything against Jeremiah. He normally took what Jeremiah said. He would get angry and put him in jail, but he didn't do him no harm. He said here, for the king is not he that can do anything against you. So he's saying the king is not, here's what it is. I'm not in a position to do anything to Jeremiah, but you all can do whatever you want to do with him. You're the ones that's angry with him, so you do what you want. Verse 6, then took they took Jeremiah and cast him into the dungeon of Malchiah, the son of Himelech, that was in the court of the prison, and they let down Jeremiah with cords, and in the dungeon there was no water but mire. So Jeremiah sunk in the mire. I don't know how you feel, but I'm thinking this is like sometimes you can be put down. I almost fell in a well one time when I was about 4 years old, my mom said. And I'm sitting on the board right across the thing, and they had to come down and talk nice to me and get me to get off the boards before I fell in the well. Well, thank God he didn't intend for me to fall in the well that day. But Jeremiah, they put him down in this hole, in this dungeon, and there's nothing. In a dungeon, if the sun can't get to it, the ground is not good. It's going to be muddy and slimy. So that's where he was. He was in a slimy situation. You can't even rest in mud. Okay? But he stayed down there. Now, in verse 7, there was a servant in the king's house. His name was Ebed-Melech, or Ebed-Melech, the Ethiopian. He says, now when Ebed-Melech, the Ethiopian, y'all excuse me with these words because I'm having, my tongue's getting all tangled up. One of the eunuchs which was in the king's house heard that they had put Jeremiah in the dungeon. The king then sitting in the gate of Benjamin, and Ebed-Melech went forth out of the king's house and spake to the king, my lord, the king, these men have done evil in all that they have done to Jeremiah, the prophet, whom they have cast into the dungeon, and he is like to die for hunger in the place where he is, for there is no more bread in the city. They were already facing a famine, okay? There was no bread in the city. So here's Ebed-Melech coming up to him. He just heard it in the king's court, and he had courage. Ebed-Melech had courage. He could have gone on about his business and not paid any attention to it, but something, I guess you're going to say, thumped his heart. And when he heard about Jeremiah, he wasn't upset with Jeremiah. Jeremiah would go all over the city telling people the Lord's coming and y'all need to leave here and go to Babylon and submit to Nebuchadnezzar. And because if you don't, you're going to stay here and die. All right? So when he told him that, verse 10, here's Zedekiah coming up. Then the king commanded Ebed-melech the Ethiopian, saying, take from hence 30 men with thee, and take up Jeremiah the prophet out of the dungeon before he died. Now, here's a king that sat up there and said, behold, he's in your hands. Do what you want with him. And now when Ebed-melech comes back and tells him where Jeremiah is and what situation he is, Zedekiah knew that Jeremiah was a man of God. And he knew enough about God to know that you don't mess with God's people. That's why he didn't want to kill Jeremiah, because he said the king is not he that can do this against him. All right? So Zedekiah, whoever had the biggest influence, or no, let's put it this way. Whoever had the biggest voice was who Zedekiah listened to. He was a king that didn't think for himself. He listened to other people who had more pull than he did. They had more ideas, so they would come to him and they said, oh, king, I do this and that. And then he would say, oh, yeah, why don't you just go ahead and do that? He didn't just sit there and say, no, now I've thought this thing out. Let me think about it for a couple of days, and I'll tell you what it is. Oh, no, he never thought about nothing. He just listened to people and reacted. Okay? So then, in 11, Ebed-melech, and then on top of that, why would he give him 30 people, 30 soldiers to go with Ebed-melech? You know why? Because he knew that those princes, if they found out that they were going to get Jeremiah, that they would probably attack Ebed-melech and kill him to keep him from getting Jeremiah out of there. So Zedekiah had enough sense and enough respect for God to say, hey, I better give him forces around him so that he can go and successfully get Jeremiah out of there. All right? So when you think about that, if you know that there's going to be trouble, you prepare for it. I give him credit for that, giving him the 30 people to go with him. So it says here, Ebed-melech took the men with him and went into the house. I'm on the 11th verse of chapter 38. And went into the house of the king under the treasury, and took thence old cast clouts and old rotten rags, and let them down by cords into the dungeon to Jeremiah. Okay, the rags are not food, and the rags, you can't put them on top of the mud so he can sleep, but that's something you would have thought about if that's what he was doing it for. And I thought about this. He went into the treasury house. So I'm thinking there was some rags where they hid the money or the gold and stuff, and they had it wrapped up. He went in and got the scrap rags and stuff out of there where they had preserved the treasures, maybe wrapped up some trophies and different artifacts in there. But he knew where to get it from because he was in the king's court house. Okay, and then it says 12, and Ebed-melech the Ethiopian said to Jeremiah, put now these old cast clouts and rotten rags under thine armholes, under the cords. So in other words, and Jeremiah did so. Now, he was mindful enough to know that if we just let the cords down and you put your arms on them and we pull you up, we just might get your arms off of there. So he wanted him not to be so sore under his arms as they were pulling him up. So they drew up Jeremiah with cords and took him up out of the dungeon, and Jeremiah remained in the court of the prison. Now, I kind of picture this court as being the outer skirts of the deeper prison. So Jeremiah, you remember when he bought the land from his cousin or his uncle or somebody, and he went from here to there to get the money to buy the property? They do business out there in the court. So Jeremiah had free reins as going around conversing with people, talking to people, and being in prison when you're in the court. That's kind of like where they put the special people now in nice plush jailhouses, okay? So 14, then Zedekiah the king sent, after he got to the court. Now, just think of this. Zedekiah turned him loose to the princes, told them to do what they wanted to do. Jeremiah's been down in the dungeon. I don't know how long he stayed down there, but he was about to die. And then after he went into the court and probably got some of his strength back, now Zedekiah is sending for him, and took Jeremiah the prophet unto him into the third entry that is in the house of the Lord. And the king said unto Jeremiah, now listen to this, Zedekiah did not even take him into his place because he did not want the princes to know that he was talking to Jeremiah. So he took him to a secret place. He said, I will ask thee a thing. Hide nothing from me. I'm about to ask you something, Jeremiah, and I want you to tell me the truth. Well, Jeremiah was known for telling the truth because he told people what the Lord, thus saith the Lord, okay? 15, then Jeremiah said unto Zedekiah, hey, if I declare it unto you, wilt thou not surely put me to death? Jeremiah said, I've had enough of you, Zedekiah, and I don't trust you no farther than I can pick you up and throw you. He said, if I give you counsel, will you not hearken unto me? He said that I got two things that can happen to me. If I tell you what you want to know, you can put me to death because you get angry with me. And if I give you counsel, you're not going to listen to a word I'm saying. You ever talk to somebody like that? Goes in one ear and come out the other, and nobody wants to listen? We have a listening problem in this world. We really do. People don't want to listen to anyone. Zedekiah was the kind of person, he listened to the highest bidder, so to speak. All right? So Zedekiah, the king, swear secretly unto Jeremiah. He was a coward, people, saying, as the Lord liveth, that made us this soul, I will not put thee to death. Neither will I give thee into the hand of these men that seek thy life. Well, what did you just do umpteen days ago? Or umpteen weeks ago? Didn't you turn me over into the hands of those men that sought my life? But Jeremiah said, okay, I'm gonna check it out this time, Zedekiah, and I'm going to tell you exactly what the Lord told me to tell you. Then said Jeremiah in 17 unto Zedekiah, thus saith the Lord, the God of hosts, the God of Israel, if thou wilt assuredly go forth unto the king of Babylon's princes, then thy soul shall live, and this city shall not be burned with fire, and thou shalt live and thine house. What is he saying? He's saying, Zedekiah, I need you to submit to Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon's princes, all of whoever that his court captures. Zedekiah, you cannot stay here in Jerusalem trying to help these princes, having listened to these false prophets tell you, oh, nothing's going to happen. You can just do what you want to do. Take over the city, beat the Chaldeans, beat Nebuchadnezzar. No way on earth you're going to beat Nebuchadnezzar. You can't get away from him, and you cannot defeat him. God had already ordained Nebuchadnezzar to take the people to Babylon for how many years? All my Bible scholars ought to say 70 years. You know that by now. He said, if you assuredly go forth, I'm in 17 again, unto the king of Babylon's princes, then thou shalt live, and this city shall not be burned with fire, and thou shalt live, and thine house. That means we're not going to destroy the city. You'll be able to live, and not only you, but your family, thine house. Everybody in your house, they'll live. But if you don't, verse 18, but if thou wilt not go forth to the king of Babylon's princes. Now listen, he's making a deal with Zedekiah. Zedekiah is thinking more of what people think about him than what God is promising him. He says, if you don't go forth with the king Babylon's princes, Then shall this city be given into the hand of the Chaldeans. See, they were out there on the outskirts too. And they shall burn it with fire, and thou shalt not escape out of their hand. So what are we saying, people? Zedekiah has another choice here. He can go with Nebuchadnezzar. If you go with Nebuchadnezzar, here's the deal. Here's the deal here. The city won't burn with fire. You will live, and your house will live. That sounds like a good deal to me. I do trust you, Lord, and I'll go ahead and do what Nebuchadnezzar and his princes tell me to do. I will surrender. I will not fight any longer, and I'll tell my princes to back down, and let's all pack up and let's get ready for Nebuchadnezzar coming get us up. You will live, okay? And Zedekiah the king said unto Jeremiah, now listen to this. I am afraid of the Jews that have fallen to the Chaldeans, lest they deliver me into their hands and they mock me. Now, here's what Zedekiah is saying. I've been big and bad, and I said we're going to win, and I said we're going to beat them, and we're going to keep this Jerusalem intact, and we're going to do this and do that. And if I go and submit to the Chaldeans, then all the people that left here and went to the Chaldeans, they're going to mock me and say I didn't live up to my word, and they're going to talk about me. They're going to say bad things about me. That's the time he should have said, sticks and stones should break my bones, but words will never harm me. But Zedekiah didn't say that. I am afraid of the sticks and stones that they're going to throw at me. I'm more afraid of the Jews who are going to mock me than I am of God who will spare my life. What kind of sense does that make? You want somebody to praise you and keep you on a pedestal when your life is in danger and your household? You're not looking out for your wife or your children. What are you going to do, Zedekiah? You just going to let them keep saying good things about you because you're fighting to keep Jerusalem open? It's still not going to happen. He gave you a choice. He said, if you go, you're going to live. And the city won't be burned and your house is going to be good. Everything. But if you go, it's going to be burned and you will not escape out of their hands. Oh, that's another story. So let's go to 20. But Jeremiah said, they shall not deliver thee. Jeremiah said, don't worry about the Chaldeans or the Jews or anybody else. Obey. What he's saying is, obey, I beseech thee, the voice of the Lord. You, man, you don't need to be worrying about what the people going to do to you. You need to be worrying about what the Lord going to do to you, which I speak unto thee. So it shall be well unto thee, and thy soul shall live. Zedekiah, it'll be well with you, and your soul shall live. Some people pay their allegiance to alcohol rather than their family. Some people pay their allegiance to money rather than living a modest life. Some people pay their allegiance to the ability to steal and to connive and to deceive. And some people pay their allegiance to fame and fortune. But God is saying, give your soul to me and it shall live. What people think of you ain't worth a hill of beans when it comes compared to what God can do for you. See, don't worry about what people think of you. Think about what God can do to you. He said in 20, let me go back. Jeremiah said, they shall not deliver thee. Obey, I beseech thee, the voice of the Lord, which I speak unto thee. This is Jeremiah talking to Zedekiah. So it shall be well unto thee, and thy soul shall live. But if thou refusest to go forth, this is the word that the Lord hath showed me. Now listen to this. And behold, all the women that are left in the king of Judah's house shall be brought forth to the king of Babylon's princes. And those women shall say, thy friends have set thee on, and have prevailed against thee. Thy feet are sunk in mire, and they are turned away back. Now listen to this one. So they shall bring out all thy wives and thy children to the Chaldeans, and thou shalt not escape out of their hand, but shalt be taken by the hand of the king of Babylon, and thou shalt cause this city to be burned with fire. These women, the things that I believe they were saying Ezekiel had talked about, there's some terrible things these women are going to be doing as a result of being influenced by the Babylon's princes and the Chaldeans. Horrible things that they did to their children. All kinds of things. I think that's what some of the people are accusing some of the people in this age in doing. But there was a reason why these women and these wives did what they did to their children. Verse 24. Then said Zedekiah unto Jeremiah, let no man know of these words, and thou shalt not die. So Zedekiah saying, now listen, we had this little secret talk. You know, brother, this between you and me and the gatepost. Have you ever heard that statement made? This between you and me and the gatepost. Now, nobody else supposed to hear about this, okay? And he said, don't let nobody know about these words. He said, then I'm going to let you live. You won't die. 25. He said, but if the princes hear that I have talked with thee, and they come unto thee, and say unto thee, declare unto us now what thou hast said unto the king, hide it not from us, and we will not put thee to death. Also what the king said unto thee. So Zedekiah is saying, if they come unto you and say, oh, Jeremiah. See, that's what Zedekiah had done to Jeremiah. He said, tell me secretly now, what did God say to me? And what did the king say? So if they come to you trying to be your friend and say, hide it not from us, and we will not put thee to death. Also, what did the king say? He's saying, if they ask you what Zedekiah said to you, don't say that. Number 26, he said, I'm going to tell you what to say to him. Then shalt thou say unto them, this is Zedekiah, I presented my supplication before the king, and that he would not cause me to return to Jonathan's house to die there. See, he said, now this is what I want you to tell him. Don't mention our other little secret conversation, but this is the words I want you to, you be telling the truth, because this is what I'm telling you right now. You won't be lying, Jeremiah. I'm protecting you from lying, and I'm protecting me from getting my reputation messed up, okay? People care a lot about their reputation, you know. I can say some stuff, but I ain't gonna say nothing about that. It says, tell them this. I presented my supplication before the king that he would not cause me to return to Jonathan's house to die there. 27, guess what happened? Then came all the princes unto Jeremiah and asked him, and he told them according to all these words that the king had commanded. So they left off speaking with him, for the matter was not perceived. In other words, Jeremiah told them, I presented my supplication before the king that he would not cause me to go to Jonathan's house to die there. That's what he told him. And then he said, so Jeremiah abode in the court of the prison until the day that Jerusalem was taken, and he was there when Jerusalem was taken. Okay? Chapter 39, we're not going to be much longer, all right? This was the fall of Jerusalem. The siege lasted 16 months. Zedekiah tried to escape but failed. The plains of Jericho was approximately 18 miles from Jerusalem. So he got 18 miles away from Jerusalem before he was caught. The prophecy was fulfilled, thou shalt not see Babylon. That was made to Zedekiah. Nebuchadnezzar took care of Jeremiah, and God's promises of deliverance to Ebed-Melech. All right? Those are some things that's going to happen in 39. The Lord judged King Zedekiah and Jerusalem falls to the Babylons, the capture of King Zedekiah, the fate of Zedekiah, Jerusalem, and the people. The Lord cares for his servants. Jeremiah is protected by the Babylons. Babylonians and God's assuring promise to Ebed-Melech. 39, verse 1. In the 9th year of Zedekiah, king of Judah, in the 10th month, came Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, and all his army against Jerusalem. They besieged it. So in the 9th year of Zedekiah, king of Judah, in the 10th month, Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, he was ready to take over Jerusalem. All his army came against Jerusalem. They besieged it. And in the 11th year of Zedekiah, so we're talking about 9, 10, 11, in the 4th month, the 9th day, the city was broken up. And all the princes of the king of Babylon came in and sat in the middle gate. And these are some tongue-tangling words, but I'm going to try to go through them. Even Nergal-Sharezer, Sam-Garnebo, Sar-Sekum, Rabsaris, Nergal-Sharezer, Rab-Mag, with all the residue of the princes of the king of Babylon. So all the princes of the king of Babylon came in where? Into Jerusalem. And it came to pass that when Zedekiah, the king of Judah, saw them and all the men of war, then they fled. This is Zedekiah now, the coward, went forth out of the city. All Zedekiah had to do was put his guards down and say, okay, Nebuchadnezzar, come on, take me. I'm ready to go with you. That's all he had to do. If he did that, Nebuchadnezzar would have spared the city, because God said the city would be spared, his house would be spared, and his life would be spared. But Zedekiah saw these people coming into Jerusalem, and he decided, we're going to flee from Jerusalem, and went forth out of the city by night. God can see in the nighttime, by the way of the king's garden, by the gate betwixt the two walls, and he went out the way of the plain. But the Chaldeans' army, listen, pursued after them, and overtook Zedekiah in the plains of Jericho. And when they had taken him, guess where the Chaldeans took him? They brought him up to Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, to Riblah in the land of Hamath, where he gave judgment upon Zedekiah, which it says upon him. Now listen to this. Do you remember when there was a prophecy made? Jeremiah told Zedekiah, you're going to be eye to eye with Nebuchadnezzar. You're going to be face to face with him, eye to eye. And I guess Zedekiah just kind of brushed that off his shoulder and didn't think about it. This man had a choice. He could have stayed in the city, surrendered to Nebuchadnezzar, been handcuffed or shackled or whatever you say. They might even give him a chariot to ride into Babylon and be in his court of Nebuchadnezzar. He told him he would live. But Zedekiah was rebelling, not against the people, but against God. God already told him what his demise is going to be. And when they overtook him, Chaldeans got him, found him. The Chaldeans didn't have nothing to do with finding Zedekiah. God showed him where he was. God's in charge of all of this stuff, people. God is in charge of our lives. He's in charge of every aspect of this entire world. All of these world leaders who think they're in charge, I got news for you. God is in charge. And Nebuchadnezzar, when they brought him to Nebuchadnezzar in Riblah, in the land of Hamath, Nebuchadnezzar gave judgment to him. Now let's see what he did. Then the king of Babylon, what did he do? He slew the sons of Zedekiah in Riblah before his eyes. Zedekiah witnessed the killing of all of his sons. Zedekiah, if you stay in the city, if you surrender to Nebuchadnezzar, your house will live. You will live. But no, he was being very, very disloyal to God. And also Also, the king of Babylon slew all the nobles of Judah. So all those princes that was under his authority, they died right there. Moreover, Nebuchadnezzar, he put out Zedekiah's eyes and bound him with chains to carry him to Babylon. You go into Babylon one way or the other, with or without eyes. And they tell me that back then, if you're going to stand eye to eye with people face to face and the king don't like you, he just take his hand and put in there and pull it out, pull your eyes out. So I don't know what happened here, but it was not a pretty sight. And the Chaldeans burned the king's house and the houses of the people with fire and break down the walls of Jerusalem. The Lord said, if you go with Nebuchadnezzar, the city won't be burned, your house won't be burned, your family will live and you will live too. But if you don't go with Nebuchadnezzar, if you go with him, none of this would happen. Verse 9, then Nebuzaradan, I was about to call him Nebuchadnezzar again. Nebuzaradan, the king of the guard, carried away captive into Babylon the remnant of the people that remained in the city, and those that fell away, that fell to him with the rest of the people that remained. But Nebuzaradan, the captain of the guard, left of the poor of the people which had nothing in the land of Judah, and gave them vineyards and fields at the same time. So the poor people who didn't have any say so in where they went or stayed, they got blessed. Okay? Verse 11. Now Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, and speaking of that, if we who are poor, God's gonna bless you. Okay? It's coming. Now Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, gave charge concerning Jeremiah to Nebuzaradan, the captain of the guard, saying, take him. This is about Jeremiah. Take him and look well to him and do him no harm. This is Nebuchadnezzar talking about Jeremiah. But do unto him even as he shall say unto thee. So here's Jeremiah going to Babylon, and he's not going to prison. He's not going into the court of the prison. He's not going into a dungeon. Nebuchadnezzar is giving him first-class amenities. Okay? He's saying, I want you to look well to him. Do him no harm. Do unto him even as he shall say unto thee. So if Jeremiah wants something, give it to him. If he needs something, give it to him. Jeremiah had suffered. He had prophesied. He had talked to the people about what God said. Jeremiah was treated well until he died in Babylon. 13. So Nebuzaradan, the captain of the guard, sent, and Nebuchadnezzar, Rabsaris, and Nergal-Sharezer, Rab-Mag, and all the king of Babylon's princes. Even they sent and took Jeremiah out of the court of the prison and committed him unto Gedaliah, the son of Ahikam, the son of Shaphan, that he should carry him home. So he dwelt among the people. So Jeremiah lived in the home of Gedaliah. I don't know how popular or how rich Gedaliah was, but Jeremiah lived in comfort. Now the word of the Lord, verse 15, came unto Jeremiah while he was shut up in the court of the prison, saying, go and speak to Ebed-Melech. Here's something I want you to remember about God. God will favor your well-doing. He trusts Jeremiah. Jeremiah was loyal to him. Jeremiah got his reward on this earth and lived peaceably among the rest of them and gave counsel to them while he was there. But not only that, Ebed-Melech saved Jeremiah's life. God did not forget that. He doesn't forget the good that you do for people. He tries to, he will remember your goodness. Even in a time when Ebed-Melech could have just turned his back and went out the door and not said anything to the king and let Jeremiah die, Ebed-Melech's heart was touched. And he said, we got to get him out of the dungeon. So now God is telling Jeremiah, he said, go and speak to Ebed-Melech the Ethiopian, saying, thus saith the Lord of hosts, the God of Israel, behold, I will bring my words upon this city for evil and not for good, and they shall be accomplished in that day before thee. But I will deliver thee in that day, saith the Lord, and thou shalt not be given into the hand of men of whom thou art afraid. For I will surely deliver thee, and thou shalt not fall by the sword, but thy life shall be for a prey unto thee, because thou hast put thy trust in me, saith the Lord. What is this saying? Ebed-Melech was not a Jew. God specifically said he was an Ethiopian. He was a Gentile. God will do that for us Gentiles. He will deliver us only if we put our trust in him. I saw this scripture somewhere and I thought I wrote it down. Some trust in horses. I think that was early on. Some trust in chariots, but we will remember the Lord. And that's what some in horses and some in chariots. We cannot trust man to do anything for us above and beyond what God can do. You must always put God first and what he desires of us first. Then, if perchance you can do something for someone else, you do that, only as directed by God. We cannot live in this world as our own resources and that we originated and we created ourselves. We can't do that. That's not what God wants us to do. He wants us to rely on him. So, the Ethiopian, Ebed-Melech, because of the good deed that he did for Jeremiah, God said, I will deliver thee in that day, and you will not be given into the hand of the man that you're afraid of. I thank God for that promise. Let me just give you 2 more pages, and I'll be finished. I'm on a roll right now. On February the 7th, 1954, with President Eisenhower sitting in Lincoln's pew in a Presbyterian church, the church's pastor, George McPherson Doherty, delivered a sermon based on the Gettysburg Address entitled A New Birth of Freedom. I wrote this last Monday morning before day or something. He argued that the nations might lay not in arms, but rather in its spirit and higher purpose. This is what the preacher preached and the president heard him. He noted that the pledge's sentiments could be those of any nation, but there was something missing in the pledge, and that which was missing was the characteristic and definitive factor in the American way of life. He cited Lincoln's words, under God, as defining words that set the U.S. apart from other nations. President Eisenhower had been baptized a Presbyterian very recently, just a year before. He responded enthusiastically to Doherty in a conversation following the service. I like what you said, Pastor. Eisenhower acted on his suggestion the next day, and on February the 8th, 1954, Republican Charles Oakman, a Republican from Michigan, introduced a bill to the effect Congress passed the necessary legislation. Eisenhower signed the bill into law, Flag Day, June 14th, 1954. Eisenhower said, from this day forward, the millions of our school children will daily proclaim in every city and town, every village and rural schoolhouse, the dedication of our nation and our people to the Almighty. In this way, We are reaffirming the transcendence of religious faith in America's heritage and future. In this way, we shall constantly strengthen those spiritual weapons which forever will be our country's most powerful resource in peace or in war. Do you hear that? June the 14th, 1954, a proclamation that we're going to keep our faith and dedicate our nation to the Almighty. All right? Now, in 1892, there were some pledges being discovered and being suggested, and people were making them. The Pledge of Allegiance, which today consists of 31 words. In 1892, Captain George Thacker Balt wrote the first version of it. I pledge allegiance to my flag and the republic for which it stands, one nation indivisible with liberty and justice for all. In 1923, Francis Bellamy revised it. He said, I pledge allegiance to my flag and to the republic for which it stands, one nation indivisible with liberty and justice for all. In 1924, it was adjusted again. The National Flag Conference, at the National Flag Conference, it says, I pledge allegiance not to my flag, but to the flag, where of the United States, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. They took out equity back in those days and all of that because of the slave issues that was going on. So they didn't want everybody to be equal. They just wanted everybody to have liberty and justice. In 1942, this happened between 24 and 54. I pledge allegiance. The Congress did this. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. See, before then, it just said to the United States. But this is to the United States of America. And to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All the way up to 1954. It was revised, and this is the version that we use now. It was proposed by the Knights of Columbus in 1951, and they were a Catholic organization. And in 1954, Eisenhower sanctioned this version of the Pledge of Allegiance. And it states, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. This is what we stand for. We don't stand for one nation under somebody. It's under God. And a lot of us want to leave that word out of our conversations. But God is the most important almighty being that we need to continue to keep him in our midst. We cannot throw God out. Yeah, they took the prayer out of school, but they had no say so if you had kept prayer in your home. We still can keep prayer in our heart. We keep God in our heart wherever we go. But let's remember, it's almost impossible to be indivisible, to share liberty and justice for all, if we are not under God's direction. I pray that we do that. I pray for our allegiances to be centered on what is pleasing to God rather than man. I pray for truth to become our normal standard of communicating. I pray for the healing of our grieving and hurting nation. Certainly had a pounce today. I continue to pray that we have a peaceful transition for our new president. God help us. I thank God for his grace and his mercy on us as he witnessed such ungodliness in this world today. A lot of stuff going on today. Good night, everyone. To those of you who stayed with me, thank you very much. I truly hope to see you next week. Can you give me that? Just stop it.